Hello, everyone, and welcome to Going Global, catering to audiences around the world. We're excited to have the opportunity to partner with KUDO to bring you today's event. My name is David Adler, the founder and chairman of BizBash, and your host and moderator today, a little under the weather with a little cough, but no COVID. I just want to let you know my voice is a little fragile. Today, we'll be talking about how, as event organizers, we are catering to audiences around the globe and what tools we are implementing for seamless global events. I'd like to invite all participants to add your questions into the messages and take part in our polls. We will address them during the last 15 minutes, but keep track of your questions because we really appreciate them. But before we jump in, I'd love to introduce our first panelist, the VP of Marketing for KUDO, Rebecca Schutte. Don't forget to stay on after this session for a demo of the KUDO platform, and you will really want to see what we have going on here. This is really interesting. So to start off, welcome, Rebecca. Tell us a little bit about KUDO and some of the features our audiences can experience today. And this is a must-have for anybody that deals with an international audience.
Awesome. Thanks so much, David. I'm super excited to see you all today and be participating on this panel. So yes, as David mentioned, I'm the VP of Marketing here at KUDO. KUDO is a multilingual meeting SaaS platform. We're actually coupled with a B2B managed marketplace for on-demand booking of interpreters, and we're powered by 10,000 professional conference interpreters. So what you're going to see today, this webinar is actually happening on KUDO, and we'll go through some more details later on today. But the most important thing, if we have any multilingual speakers who are joining us right now, the most important area you'll see on your screen is the bottom left-hand window. You'll see currently it's a white window. It says floor. If you click on that, and you can click on it anytime during the call today, what you'll see here is your language selector. So we are listening to the floor. That means anyone on screen, this is the language that the people on screen are speaking. But if you wanted to listen along in Spanish or French, or if you are hearing impaired and would like to join in American Sign Language, you could select any one of those. And again, we on the back end, we have a real live human interpreters who are interpreting everything we are speaking right now. So I want to dig into the actual content of this, and we can deal with the platform later, but super excited.
Yes, but I have one question that I am dying to ask you about the platform.
Yes.
I have been involved, I think I've mentioned before, at the State Department and saw how hard it is to do this function properly. You're dealing with so many different people from all around the world. Does it plug into every system? This is not a standalone. This is something that plugs into everything. So I think that's really critical for people to know. Tell us how integrated this is.
Yep, absolutely. So interesting that you say you come from the State Department. So KUDO is actually founded by people who have extensive experience in interpretation as well as meetings. So our founders helped to, one of our chief language officer comes from the UN and ran the fleet of interpreters for one of the UN's partnership organizations. And one of our CEO helped build one of the big conference halls in New York. So we know the industry inside and out. And yes, right now you are looking at KUDO's standalone platform, but we realize we are built for multilingual meetings. We don't necessarily care where you're having your meeting. We are going to provide the multilingual aspect of it. So if you want to have your meetings on Zoom, if you'd like to have your meetings on Hopin, that's fine. We will provide the multilingual interpretation as well as, again, that on-demand booking of interpreters. So if you are new to interpretation, you are broadening into a global audience and you say, oh, I have people speaking all different languages. I don't know how to communicate with them. That's what we can help with. Again, 10,000 interpreters that we're building this network with. You can book them on demand through KUDO.
And as we go global, when we talk about global meetings, this is the sort of the secret sauce of adding so much scale to what you're doing. I hear every day someone saying, oh, I went from 1,000 person meetings to 10,000 people. Now with this system, you're able to do it in even bigger and better and really connect to people that English may not be their first language, let's say.
Absolutely. I think, both of us are native English speakers, or I am assuming that you are, David. And I think sometimes we fall prey to that idea that, well, everyone communicates in English. But what we recognize when you are communicating on a global platform is that a lot gets lost in translation. So if everyone can participate in their own native language, then everyone can be understood and you can understand one another. Really important.
So when this is not a sales pitch at all, but I'll tell you, when I first was introduced to you, the light bulb went off in my head saying, oh my God, this is what people really need, because it really connects to those thousands and thousands of people around the world. And your brands, whether you don't even think about language, can go global. But with that, the whole essence of a global meeting is to make people feel comfortable in any language they speak and make the world a smaller place. So with that, I wanted to introduce the rest of our panel. And they're going to be popping up on the screen as I mention their name. It's like the Brady Bunch, but it's going to be a little pop-up thing. So first we have Melissa Park, who's joining us from Sydney, Australia. She is the founder and CEO of Melissa Park Events. And over the years, Melissa has produced numerous events around the world for clients like the PGA, FIFA, MLB, Target, and more. She's got more initials to different things that we've probably never heard of even. Next we have, popping up on the screen, actually living in Miami, but from France, Valerie Bihet. And she's joining us from Miami. And she's the founder of Vibe Agency, which I love because her name is Valerie Bihet, and I see where the V and the B come from. Over 27-year career, she's produced numerous events for global clients like Dior and Cartier and L'Oreal, to mention a few. And I've known her for 100 years. Well, we can't say that. We've only known her since we're only 40, right? Then we have Joe Paulomina, who is the Client Success of America lead at KUDO, and he joins us today from Toronto, Canada. So we have a total international audience here with many years of global events and interpretation experience. Joe brings a wealth of knowledge on the global events experience, and we're so excited to have you all here. And before we actually get going, I'd like for people to go over what the last year has been like for you, to personalize it. Because we're now, remember about a year and a half ago, like, you're on mute, or whatever. We had all these crazy things. We didn't even understand Zoom. Now we're like experts at this. And now we're bringing the world together with meetings of 10,000, 100,000 people. And everything has changed. So Valerie, do you want to give us a little sense of how you have evolved first? Unmute.
So first, everything stopped. Everything for global event completely stopped. Then when people were ready to talk a little bit more and to get back, there is no choice. We had to go virtual and digital. And this is what we have done for the last year, producing virtual and digital events and trying to still connect people from a lot of different countries, but virtually and digitally right now.
And how about Joe? What have you seen? What has been your evolution? And then we'll go to Melissa.
Well, the past year has really been a big change for me, because previously, in my last life before KUDO, it was all on-site events, or at least the vast majority of it. And so, moving to basically a completely virtual style of meeting has really upended, the whole industry, but also my personal experience. So, global events, whether it's 30 people or 400, 500, 600 attendees, has all been online. And so it's just been a real challenge and real learning and growing experience to see how the transformation went from basically on-site meetings to purely virtual on different platforms like KUDO.
Has there been one thing that you can say, oh my God, I really blew this one and learned from it?
I would say, well, actually, we'll talk about this a little later, but related to hybrid, there are setups still with a lot of our clients, a lot of people that I deal with, where they have interpreters on site, they're dealing with on-site equipment, and connecting that to virtual technology isn't always easy. So there's been some experiences, some learning curves to a lot of those different setups to make sure that the audio is working correctly, that there's no glitches, that there's no crashes of different systems while connecting hardware with software. And so I would say that's that was a big challenge to get used to, and something that companies like us are mastering more and more each day.
And Melissa from Sydney, what has been you literally have had a journey, both physically and emotionally. What was your journey like over the last year?
Yeah, so pre-COVID for us, everything was in-person conferences. So I was living in New York at the time. I was in the US for 6 years. So doing all in-person conferences, and then COVID hit. My client base is US tech startups. None of them particularly loved the idea of going virtual. So we kind of stopped.
Startups didn't like to go virtual? Okay.
Yeah, they much prefer they just love the in-person experience. So I think what we do is so unique and it's so great, and they just didn't feel like we could do that virtually as well as we do it in person. So we really didn't do anything. We bypassed the hybrid to virtual with them. During the pandemic, though, we signed Target. So we've done 4 virtual events with them. And then now, and I know we're getting to this a little bit later, but looking to move to hybrid as a step back to in-person. So it's exciting as we kind of move back in the right direction for me.
And Rebecca, tell us a little about your journey and also we just learned that you have a whole bunch of chickens.
Yes.
You got chickens.
Yep, exactly. Some people get pandemic puppies. We got pandemic chickens. But yeah, the journey for KUDO has been an insane ride. So in March of 2020, I think KUDO had 10 employees, and we are pushing 150 today. So our business absolutely exploded. We also have seen just changes in the trends. So you're right. Initially, everything stopped. And then they recognized, okay, this isn't going away. This isn't the 2-week pause we thought everyone was going to experience. This is going on, and we have to figure out a business continuity plan. And so I think what we found was initially people were taking what was happening in the real world and just moving it virtually. And now we're actually experiencing changes in meeting and event trends. So when you were previously organizing a global event, that was something that you'd plan for months ahead of time. And what we're recognizing now is that there are much shorter timeframes leading up to things. And so what we recognize we needed to build is that on-demand booking capability, because you may decide to pull together a meeting because it's going to be virtually, tomorrow or a week from now, and you need to have those on-demand solutions ready to address that right now.
What are the biggest stumbling blocks when you want to do an international meeting in a period of a few weeks now? Now we can activate it quickly, but on the interpretation side, how much planning do you have to do to make it a reality?
Yeah, so, just like lots of parts of events, there's lots of logistics that go into it. And so, it's not necessarily booking interpreters. That's not necessarily, the sexy part of events that we think about when we think about global event planning. But those logistics are a heavy lift. And that is where KUDO has really streamlined that process, where at the click of a button, you can say, I need interpretation in these 5 languages for this period of time, and we're going to take care of all of that on the back end for you. We have the network of interpreters who can accept or reject jobs. They are already set up to have kind of mutual NDAs with all of our clients, so that if there is sensitive information, the one thing when you want the quality of interpretation to be at the level all of us want, preparation is really important. So the more that we can prepare our interpreters with, okay, here are the topics we're talking about. These are the types of things that you interpreters need to be prepared to interpret on the fly, the better and more successful the output will be.
I'd like to add something to that, David, if I can. Yeah. So, interpreters around the world have really adapted to working virtually as opposed to working on site for conferences and large events, right? Especially in the simultaneous interpretation world, it was a big shift. Now, a lot of the logistical pressure has been taken away, where regionally you might have to have interpreters travel across country, across the world. There's a lot of costs involved, a lot of planning tickets, hotels. A lot of that has been simplified and taken away, although there have been additional challenges added virtually. So that's one thing KUDO does, and a lot of platforms are doing to try to streamline that process. But it's been a big shift from and I think really a benefit and convenience to allow interpreters now work virtually on different platforms as opposed to working out all the on-site logistics that typically go with meetings.
It's no different than these news anchors that are now working at home, and
right.
or you're having guests from all around the world at your events, but having the right interpreters. What I want to do is now move a little bit into the big question that I have for, especially for Melissa and Valerie, is we're moving into what we call the hybrid event. But most people don't understand what the hell a hybrid event is. Everyone has in their own minds what a hybrid event is. From a global perspective, it's another piece of canvas that we have. And why don't you talk about what your clients think it is and what you think it is and what you think it should be? You want to start, Melissa?
Yeah. So this is my biggest pain point right now for sure. So I am having a lot of conversations with people that are wanting to move into the hybrid model. And I'm like, okay, so what is your understanding of the hybrid, like the virtual part element of it? And they're like, a live stream or a broadcast. I'm like, oh no. So I think the biggest thing is educating companies or educating clients that it really needs to be a standalone event in its own right. So plan your in-person experience and then plan a virtual experience that's modified. To live stream something all day long, it's just not effective. No one's going to tune in all day long. You've got a couple of hours maximum with them. So, rework the program, maybe, live stream certain parts and then add the rest of the education as, a platform to drip out later on, or, there's a million ways to do it. But I think just seeing them as two standalone events and designing two very different experiences is key. And then the budget as well. So a lot of them are thinking, and I've asked the question before, I'm like, pre-COVID and you live streamed the keynote to your website, you didn't say you were delivering a hybrid event. We were just live streaming something. And suddenly, a live stream is hybrid. And so it's a lot of re-education at the moment. And then explaining that to do this effectively, we need the budget to back it.
And before I get to Valerie on this, what is the attention span question? Because I've heard lots of debate. Is it, that live is 5 times longer than virtual? What's a long time for a hybrid presentation now?
So personally, I am recommending no longer than 2 hours, and with a very intentional program. So, make sure everything's kind of seamless and interactive, and you've got different elements to keep grabbing people's attention, because, a lot of people are still working from home and there's distractions everywhere, whether it's a dog or a chicken or just hungry or whatever the case, or your phone, whatever the case may be. There's so much distraction. So I am recommending no longer than 2 hours.
I'm going to also do a round robin on a couple of these questions, but I'm going to ask you this first. What, for an international global meeting, when should you host them? What's the time frame? What's the geography? What's the Melissa rule? And then I want to know the Valerie role and the Rebecca role and the Joe role.
I think you need to know you can't please everyone if it's truly global. So I think work out who you really want to target. And, if there's a couple of different time zones, then work out what works best for them. And then everyone else is just a bonus. So it's really about knowing your audience, knowing who you're targeting and working around that. And then that's why having platforms later that people can log into is always good, because, you can grab them later. But I think just knowing the audience and catering to them is the only way around it. You're always, it's 3:20 a.m. right now for me. And, I'm on because I want to be part of this. But, if it was an event, I probably wouldn't be. I'd probably just log in later.
Like if we said you're going to be the keynote at 3:20 a.m. in Australia, would you? It's like, does it work? Or is it important? To me, this is like a huge issue. Maybe we should move over to Valerie, since she's got the French piece and the Miami piece and the U.S. piece. What is your thinking on? First of all, what is hybrid? What is the time frame? What's the attention span? What are we screwing up already?
So definitely hybrid, it's not purely digital. You need to have, and we have few cases right now where we had 70 people, 80 people in person, and we are doing a program for them. And then we have also an audience, another 200 or 300 people virtually. And so at some point you need to have some mix for both of them, but then you need also to do things for the one who are in person, for the one who are virtually, and then you can find a mix. So this is really important. Then I think right now for the attention span, we are all able to watch a television program for an hour and a half, 2 hours. Yes, we do it. We need to think like TV producer. And in the way we build our program, and we know that digitally you have an attention span every 10 minutes. Every 10 minutes at some point, you need to think to engage your people. You need to make them laugh. You need to make a break and everything. If you agree, for example, if I bring some sparkle and Melissa brings some sparkle and David, just do a little trick like that, But every 10 minutes, attention span, they need to do something. So usually when we build our component in our program, we do a segment of 20 minutes, So every 20 minutes, there is something. And then like that, you can go up to 2 hours, definitely with what Melissa said, for sure.
And how about time of day? You have an event in Miami, but you want to reach the world. So what is your sort of go-to time frame?
So we had a program where we had Australia, Japan, Europe, United States with a 3 zone. So when we build our program here, for example, and I will not ask Melissa to do all of it right now, for example, as a keynote, but we had one keynote from one segment market. So we did all the Asia and the European on one side for one day. The US was maybe more on recording, was able to watch more recording. And on the next day, we did the opposite. So we did more the US and Europe more lively. And then we did the Japan and everything who had more remote session, So we try to please everybody. We adjust to the audience. And it's like another things, like, when you do an event with Europe and the US or Asia, at what time do you have regularly your breakfast, your lunch, your dinner? Because if you plan to have a keynote at that moment, believe me, the stomachs of everybody is like crunchy and they don't pay attention. So we need to pay attention to all those different details.
So do you have your own template for that kind of stuff? And
yes.
It sounds like you're slicing and dicing. I mean, my sense is
yes.
that the whole purpose of events is to figure out a way to scale intimacy so that people don't feel like they're just sitting at their table. Like we're having this conversation, like we're having our little party line ourselves and other people are listening in, but everyone wants to feel like they're part of it. How do you make people feel part of it? And then I'm going to go to Rebecca and Joe and get their opinions on all of this stuff. Like, how do you make people engage is the question I have. Melissa, you go first, and then Valerie, and then I'm going to bring it over to the translation side as well, and experience from Joe and Rebecca.
Yeah, I've found like it's just really just bringing like interactive elements in, and so a really engaging MC to kind of keep things moving along and keep the energy high. Entertainment just to watch and kind of get in. It was like one virtual event. The amount of comments on the DJ, because the DJ that like we'd pre-recorded it all, but he was like super interactive and dancing and singing the words, and they loved it. So getting and then having people comment back to them in the chat, so making them feel seen and heard. I'm pointing this way because the chat's usually on this side of the screen. Photo booths and even things like the mosaic photo booths with the video. So you can show, your photo is now part of this thing. So it adds like you're part of the community, and then using that as a post-show, email, something to send out post-show in the email, so it kind of ties from the event experience to after. So really it's just, polls, kind of anything that kind of gets them engaging and gets them part of it, and then looking for opportunities, even if it's as simple as replying to their messages. So many don't. So doing little special touches like that just to make them feel like they're an important part of the event.
Okay, I want to go to Valerie, but I want to first preface it that I met Valerie when she was working at Club Med, so I can't wait to hear her answers to this.
So basically, we need still to think like real life. We were doing a conference and we started just with something simple, a 3D immersive experience where we simulated travel. So people were going in a plane, having a drink, arriving at the airport. They were seeing a taxi, and then we bring them in an hotel in California. They arrive on the beach, and boom, the stage was here. just doing things like that already, transport people, bring them in the element. They were having an experience. And then we had deliver swag bag, and we had deliver wireless earbud to make sure that the sound, the experience that they will have watching, listening will be good. We had deliver blue light filtering glassing. Look, I still have them. They are right there. And some hats for simulated morning walk on the beach. So all those elements, you need to have a creative approach to create that, and it will attempt to unify your audience with multiple needs in different locations. But remember, you in person, we were bringing the 5 senses: view, smell, touch. Here, we need to try to do the same for virtual and hybrid.
But how do you go into scripted versus non-scripted to make it, like we're talking, I believe that we have to be more casual in this environment. Do you have to break the script as you see fit based on the people, reaction, right?
Yes, but one thing, when you watch television, do you think they go sometimes very unscripted? Everything is scripted. So we need also to do the same at some point.
Yes. Okay, now we're going to go to Rebecca. What do you think about this reaction, all the things that you heard, and Joe as well, in terms of how, in the interpretation side, I asked you a question earlier, like how do you make it so that you add emotion to interpretation, and do you have any of the tricks of the trade of when you do things based on your global meetings that you've seen in terms of time frames and attention spans and everything else?
Sure. So I think there are a lot of good points touched upon. I think, yes, it should be scripted, but it should feel unscripted, right? You want to feel like this is a living event, right? That's why people love live events, because you don't know what's going to happen. And from the interpretation side, so there are bots out there that do, closed captioning, right? So that's great. That is adding accessibility to people who don't necessarily have it, but there's lots of mistakes that happen with that. Human interpreters, not only are they actually translating the words, but they're also catching the subtle body language and nuances and cultural idioms, and translating what makes sense in one culture, not just a verbatim translation, but actually what would be culturally relevant in the native tongue that someone is listening in. So that definitely, I think, from an interpretation standpoint, is a big differentiator. And then also, I think all of you spoke about engagement, and engagement is really important. I did want to, speaking of engagement, just point out we have a poll running right here. So anybody who has a chance, we have a poll in your right-hand rail. You'll see a little red dot right on the polls. So going into next year, which type of event do you think you will plan the most? So that two-way interaction is super important, I think, in hybrid events. You need to make the people who are in person feel like they can participate, as well as the people who are remote, and hear from everyone's voices. So feel free to answer the poll.
Well, everybody answer the poll, because we're going to unveil it in a few minutes, I assume. And also, Rebecca, what about the time frame? You've watched a lot of these events. You're doing like a UN event. Like, what is the normal protocol? I mean, I could not tell you what it would be, because I don't really know, but So
I mean, obviously, when you are scheduling for global, we're a big world, and obviously we aren't all on the same. Poor Melissa is up at 3 a.m, and gosh, doesn't she look beautiful at 3 a.m?
It's the ring light.
It's her hair and makeup.
But yes, I think I have my North American biases, right? So the golden time for America for like webinars and events normally is like, noon or 1 o'clock, right? Or right around now, because we hit the West Coast and the East Coast. Now that I'm working with more European time members, I'm recognizing that's really too late. I need to shift it a little bit earlier. So my West Coast group may need to wake up more like 8 a.m. So then we've got like an 11, and then that's more like late afternoon for Europe. But honestly, when we're dealing with our partners in the APAC region, that's where I think Valerie and Melissa have strong points that there may not be a one size fits all solution. There isn't that golden hour that it's going to hit everyone, because, obviously we have 24 hours in a day. It's nighttime somewhere. So you may need to structure things. I really liked Valerie's idea of shifting your schedule, right? Having day one hit on a time that makes sense for a majority of audience, and then day two shift that, so that you never want someone to be thought of as an afterthought. You want everyone to feel included, like this event is designed specifically for them. That's going to take shifts on event organizers' side.
Do you think that it should be separate events, Valerie, in terms of, as opposed to doing one global event, can you do one global Asia version and one global European, one global, what's going to be the structure going forward? We're getting a little bit into trends, but Joe, I did not forget you, don't worry.
So definitely there is one trend where people now are from global company and global organization. They are trying to come back to more regional, to have a CEO in the APAC, CEO in Europe, CEO in the US. But then at some point, they still need to learn from each other. So you still need, you need to think a little bit like a big resort, a big 5-star resort and everything. You have the whole, but then everybody also can pick what they want to do, where they want to go, what they want to choose. But then at some point, the CEO of the global company need to address to the entire group. So you can have a very small 2 hours CEO driven, and then after have more regional micro experiences by region and everything to be more suitable.
Let me go to Joe first. Joe, let's get your feedback on what you're seeing. You're up in Toronto, one of my favorite cities in the world, which we cannot even go to now. What is your sense of the things we've been talking about here?
Yeah, so I think everyone has made some great points, especially related to time zone. If I were to add something to that, I would say the type of event really matters as well. If you're going to have more of an interactive kind of entertainment style event, you want to have everyone there at least be 9 a.m. at a minimum, their local time. People typically get more hyped up in the evening as opposed to, very early in the morning. So if you have to choose a time, I would say start 9 a.m. and then have others go in later for that type of meeting. But of course, the golden rule is to go with the time zone in which the majority of the participants are happening, and to shift that based on, who's there day by day to make sure everyone's included, for sure. I would say another thing about time zone, for the US, I would echo with Rebecca, and this is our own bias again. 1 p.m., 2 p.m. is good to make sure that both the East Coast and West Coast are included in a reasonable time frame for the meeting. There were plenty of other points, David, I could touch upon, like a participant engagement. So
yeah, go ahead.
I just want to echo. So Melissa mentioned chat engagement. It's really, really important to make sure that if you're in an interactive meeting, you're calling out those that are typing in the chat. So if I were to look at the chat right now and say, Channing, oh, you made a comment about it's a ring light, and said, I love you, lady. Calling out individual messages like that to have people be heard and say, okay, they're talking about me. I'm not messaging into the void. I'm messaging to actual real life people that are communicating with me. That really, really ramps up engagement. In addition, for example, KUDO, and not to grandstand just on KUDO, but we do have, the request to speak feature where you can bring people onto the floor for very interactive meetings. So giving the audience the opportunity to come on screen, show their face, have their actual voice heard, while having it interpreted in multiple languages is a really cool thing to get people excited about, the type of meeting they're in. For attention span, I would pretty much agree with everyone. 2 hours would be the limit, and you'd want to break up time for that. And again, echoing Rebecca on interpreters, as far as how you make that more lifelike, the fact that we're using real life interpreters, a lot of an interpreter's job is to mimic the energy and match the energy of the speaker to make sure that it's really a seamless experience and you feel like you're listening to the actual speaker. If you've ever seen an interpreter in real life in an actual physical booth, you'll see oftentimes they're moving their hands, they're being very emotive. They might stand up when the speaker is excited to really try to match that energy. And that's what our interpreters try to do in a virtual environment as well.
it's interesting. We talk about the 2-hour virtual meeting. If you're doing an all-day conference and you want to do a virtual piece of it, a hybrid, how do you operate that? Do you start later in the day? Like, what is the relationship between the actual meeting and the virtual side of this meeting? You got Valerie. Is that a raising of your hand in a very engaging way?
Engagement team, we didn't have an engagement team really, if we can say in-person event, but now virtually and hybrid, we need a dedicated engagement team. So I'm your engagement team, guys, with Joe. Joe, watch the chat. I'm doing the entertainment here.
Will do.
So now I lost my mind.
I asked you whether we said a 2-hour meeting. That is perfect, but a conference is a whole day. How do you chop it up and engage in the whole world?
Break. We do session of 2 hours and then we break. We break in morning break. We break and we do more break with virtual and hybrid that we do maybe in person. Then we have a break for lunch. We have also break in the afternoon. So you really combine all these different things. So this is really like a grid. Think about blocks. You do a 20-minute blocks. You have every 10 minutes an engagement. You do another 20-minute blocks. I really push each of my speaker at the global conference 20 minutes because you don't go for 2 hours. People, they will not remember anything.
Right.
Remember.
So let me push back a little bit on that. So are you asking your people to sort of engage for the entire day? Because I personally, the minute I'm off, I'm done. Or do you create your own program for 2 hours just for that virtual audience? Melissa, you seem to be shaking your head. Rebecca seems to be reacting, and so does Joe.
We have conferences where basically they are still in meeting for 5 hours. So we build in those 5 hours, we build the program differently. We do some activity, we do different moments. It's like it's going like a wave, So the important moment when we have key message, you need to make sure that they are refreshed. You do it right after a break or things like that. So you build your program and your agenda like that because global conferences, they have a lot of information. The finance has to talk, the product has to talk, the marketing has to talk. So either you now, because you are hybrid and digital, some people, they say 2 hours a day for like a week or 2 weeks, and they really extend it. But there is some, which is another way of doing it. But me, I have people where we go on 2 or 3 days, and we have to make things happen in 2 or 3 days. So we need to find a way to engage them. We need to find solution after lunch when people come back. Don't put the CEO there to bring a big message. You need to do something a little bit more casual, and then you bring, like right now we are doing a panel. Then you can have after you do a variety of format that you can use to transmit your message. And I think this is different. And this is a way to do it.
So we're having a singer right after this to sing the message. Melissa, what is your thought on this topic?
Yeah, so for virtual events, we've just redesigned the entire experience. So typically our in-person conferences would be either full day or multi-day. But for virtual, I basically just said, no, it's not going to be successful. So we've redesigned the event to a 2-hour experience. They don't log back in. It's 2 hours and done. And basically what we do is we shorten down the presentations to 15 minutes. Like Valerie said, we do different formats. So there'll be like a solo presenter, then a panel. We always do speaker Q&A at the end of the day, just because it's attendee experience-wise, it's easier for them just to move once. Kind of off the main stage. But yeah, shorter presentations for sure, a 2-hour slot. We usually, so with any event, I think, you've got your keynote, which is the big messaging you want everyone to hear. And then there's always, a lot of our events have like 100 to 200 breakout sessions. Now, when you're marketing those, you typically only market maybe like the top 6 or something like that. So we pick the best of the bunch. That's what goes into our live stream, our virtual experience, and then everything else is provided after the show on the website. So they don't miss out on anything, but they can go in and pick what they want from, whatever track's relevant. But it's more so like, I guess, almost like a teaser, more, with the core message that they need, which is, the keynote, and then the best of the bunch in terms of the content.
Rebecca, what is your thought on this? On doing like the virtual 2-hour versus the full day?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's interesting. I guess it depends. If you're talking about a virtual event, a purely virtual event, then I agree. I mean, I think a virtual event should be optimized for a shorter time frame. When you're talking a hybrid event, it's interesting. I think there are two different philosophies there, and I'm big on kind of parity of experience. If you were going to offer this as a true hybrid event, well, the people at home should have an equal ability to participate as those people in person. But you're right, there are different experiences there. So I think there's a lot of learning that needs to go on. And we have to test and we have to see what audiences are responding to and get better and better.
I've been going to like board meetings that become hybrid, and the people in the room don't even remember that there's somebody virtually paying attention. So you gotta get their attention, and nobody even remembers that they're there. Joe, do you have any thoughts on this topic?
Yeah, I think just to add on breakout sessions, right, which Melissa touched upon. Not every part of every conference is going to be relevant to every single person at the same time, right? And so if you have a conference lasting 3 days, when you're organizing what's going to be on each day, make sure that you're mixing what's relevant for the total audience, so that, maybe you have 30 minutes to an hour where everyone is together for some kind of keynote speech or some kind of group activity, and then branch off to say, okay, so for the next hour, 2 hours, we're going to segment our audience into 4 or 5 different breakout sessions where they're all attending the same, different content that's relevant to them at the same time. And that way they're not sitting through, 5, 6, 7 hours of a conference. They're able to experience what they need, get out, and then come to something different the next day. So organizing days not around one topic to try to include everyone, but mixing it up so that you can segment your audience is, I think, really important to keep the attention span of everyone.
One of the things I always wonder is the purpose of having the meeting in the first place. And as we said, everybody says that, okay, there's got to be a purpose, the reason for having the meeting. And I have a big question about what is more important, content or contact when you go to a meeting? And how do you facilitate both of those? Now, a lot of the platforms have lots of matchmaking things. And a lot of people, but on the other hand, content you can get almost from anywhere. So why do you sign up to go, especially to a global conference? What is the reason for us to meet now? And has that changed a lot based on talking to your clients, probably Melissa and Valerie first, in terms of have the client content and the client purpose for a meeting changed in this last year? It's a little bit of a new question that we didn't prepare for, but the idea, I believe that you have to make these events really valuable in order for people to go now. Because now, we went through a period where you can kill your grandmother by going to an event. And so they have to be really purposeful. So how do you add more purpose? And I believe that the translation piece makes it more relevant to more people. And so my question is, have you seen any change in terms of these trends? In terms of, is it the CEO meeting now to tell people what's going on the corporate side? Or is it for educational purposes? Is it to, for people at trade shows, they do go to meet people and sell things? Like, are there real reasons for going to a meeting now?
So I think on the objectives of the meeting are still the same. You bring people to motivate your team if you have an internal convention. If you have something external to drive revenue, to build brand recognition. So all this is the same, okay? So then the content is key, because if you don't have a content and a message, what is the purpose to do an event and to spend money? It's none. So I think content is definitely key. And then, because if you want to engage with your audience, you need to bring them, you need to have a content. You remember the triangle of an event. Today, because we are virtual and hybrid, the technology, engagement, and delivery is key. You need to capture your audience, to convey your message, to help them to bring the emotion to your event, to deliver it, and all that will make that you will impact your audience. So content is key. The contact is important, definitely. And I think here there is still a lot on the networking aspect. There is still a lot of improvement need to be done. There is one or two platforms who are right now really good with one-to-one networking event. And you know, David, because you did few things also with them. And then also now some virtual component can also bring that you see somebody, and then I see you at the conference and I can run with an avatar behind you and just like do, hey, I want to talk to you. So the contact also is key because you are doing an event and you want to meet new people. I think, honestly, even if we were doing a lot of events in person, I have met much more new people virtually in the last year and a half. So, which is also very good. You know, now nobody refused to do a virtual meeting, to put their camera on and to meet you. So we all are striving to make contact. We all are dying to go back in person. It's not the case right now. Global event, the borders are still closed. The president also announced it just yesterday. The border will still close. And believe me, they are going to stay closed for the next few months right now. So we all need contact, and hybrid is important. Virtual is important. So it's my opinion on that.
Melissa, you're on.
Yeah. I
By the way,
kind of agree.
Are you getting tired?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah, I totally agree. It all comes back to your mission and goals, and I think you've just got to design an event that enables you to meet those goals. You know, some companies it purely is education, and therefore it is, you know, content based. Others are wanting the interaction. So, you know, roundtables or one-on-one meetings, or, you know, recruit dates or brain dates, or, you know, any of those things that you can do within a lot of virtual settings are really important. So I think, you know, it's very individual based on what the mission and goals are for that company.
We have a couple of questions coming in from the audience. And then Rebecca, if you want to unveil the poll, that would be first before we go to questions. You want to open that up?
Sure.
And I can.
So let's see. So yes, we have some results here. So 2 polls we had listed. We have going into next year, which type of event do you think you will plan the most? We had 50 people around, looks like, participated. So we have 18% saying that they're going to primarily schedule virtual events, 75% doing these hybrids, and then 6% doing in-person only. So I think that just goes to show hybrid is here to stay for right now.
Hybrid is once we define it.
Yes, exactly. And then we had a second poll. What are some of your biggest difficulties faced when catering to global audiences? So this is really interesting to me. So 11% say cultural differences. 63% is catering to different languages, I believe, and then 25% catering to multiple languages. Sorry, the middle one is catering to different time zones. So yeah, we all spoke to that, right? It's very difficult. There is no golden hour that hits everyone in the world. Someone has to be Melissa, who is up at 3 a.m. That's
right. So let's go. There's a couple questions. Let's sort of see what we got here. What is your experience? What, in your experience, is the average percent of number of registered delegates versus the actual attendance that you're seeing? So really, what is your fallout rate? Which we all know for paid events is one thing, for virtual is another. What is your rule of thumb, Melissa and Valerie?
So I think with moving to virtual, so in person, I had, you know, a very small no-show rate. When we moved to virtual, suddenly I feel like every non-banana bread or sourdough maker's favorite way to fill time was just registering for everything. So we would see, massive pre-registration numbers, and then the actual attendance was maybe like 50% of that. So that's why we did a lot of pre-event gift surprises. So we, send out the box with bits and pieces, and then use those bits and the MC would relate back, or chat back to those bits and pieces that they got in the surprise box to use during the show. So I think for us, it's around the 50% mark. I think the problem also is that suddenly virtual events were free. Pre-COVID, everything had, $1 attached to it. But suddenly during COVID, everything went free, and then, there's no skin in the game and no barrier to entry as well. So I think that caused a lot of what we're experiencing with this.
What do you think about the whole swag boxes and things like that? Is it doable? Is it cost effective? It's a lot of work, and it's also, you can't reach a global audience because it's too difficult.
Yeah, so you can do different things. There's like digital gift cards that you can do as well. So for another event we're doing, we're sending out virtual gift cards where it's like, duck in store or online and have a snack on us. So rather than do the whole box where we're sending it out, because what I found as well is a lot of people won't give up their addresses now. So where I actually thought the first time I was trying it, that's awesome, we can send it to everybody. And then when I was pulling the list and looking, the addresses, and I made it like where they had to fill it out. And a lot of people would just put a space bar or their email address. And then it's like, oh, that didn't work. But a large portion of them got the boxes. So yeah, but you can do digital gifts, and especially in a global audience now, you can look for, okay, what's the Starbucks in, Asia, or what, and kind of just personalize it that way.
Wow. Valerie, what's your sort of take on this question?
I really believe in the power of the swag box. If you have the budget, you have the budget. If you don't have the budget, it's true that you need to find another way to do it. There is also we have to ship to a lot of different countries, and depending also on the brand, there is some product that you cannot ship, like, fragrances in the cosmetic world, you can't because it's alcohol. But what you could do definitely is you have now Swagbox, you have a virtual website where people, they can choose what they want. They have allowed to have 2 or 3 items for a certain amount, and this can help. On the food, definitely a lot of partnership with Uber Eats, Grubhub, DoorDash, and all that. You can definitely also help, I think. But
what
it's
about
important.
What's your no-show rate?
So, I will tell you, we do a lot of really corporate meetings, national sales meeting and everything. So we just did one for a food industry, and we were supposed to have 3,000 people. We had 2,500 people. So, and usually also for national sales meeting, you have very low no-show rate because they know that it's a mandatory, it's the annual or the biannual meeting, and they have to be there. But when we are doing like webinar and everything, we are around 30% drop in average.
So the consumer versus like the real,
there is a big difference. Yes,
a huge difference.
There is a huge difference, and yeah, and us we are more, yeah. Definitely.
Yeah. I mean, you're not going to not show up at your company meeting.
No, you can't. No, because anyway, one of the things is that now who is in the room. You can check sometime if their camera are on or not. If they ask questions, you can do a lot of different things. And there is also with a gamification that you can do in the virtual and digital. You see if people are participating or not. When you have document that you want them to read, you see if they click on the document, if they have opened the document, how much time they have spent in the room. So you have a lot of more KPI that the organizer of the event and the company can get after.
Have you ever heard the term, I learned this term last week, called zombies? So there's a lot of zombies who turn their cameras on and they don't do anything. And at the end, when it turns out the cameras stay on all the time. So there's this data point of how many zombies are just have their cameras on and they're nothing to do with the meeting. They're with their kids or something.
But now also, we have CEO where in front of them, it's exactly like what Tony Robbins is doing in the world of coaching, where you can see people and everything, and you can bring people on stage. So, and engagement, if you do a lot of engagement since the beginning of your event, people know that you will continue to engage them. If you stay passive, they know that they can do something else. So this is also one of the tricks that you need to do. At every conference at the beginning, we start to engage with the audience. We bring people on stage, we ask them something, and we make them participate. And then we say that we will do more randomly like that. So then people are more afraid. And when we do networking, we do something with the top management, with the board or the top CEO. And basically people say, oh my goodness, what if you are supposed to be brought in a one-to-one or a mini group with a CEO and you are not here to show up?
Ooh, you're dead.
There's also the swag stores that are attached to points. So I've seen this done as well, where you can have some really cool swag in a swag store, and you're almost forcing everyone to participate in as many things around the virtual event as possible. Each thing gets a certain number of points, and then at the end of the event, you can go into the swag store and use your points up, and then you get sent that swag box after the show.
You're gamifying the swag. We have a question that's on, is the virtual swag effective? It seems like there's a lot of, there's nodding here.
It can be depending on the industry, honestly. And it definitely does vary. I am a bit of a gamer myself. So in that industry, it's actually very effective. So when you have these large conferences about, products that are being sold that the fan base is very, energetic about, right? Giving swag in the form of some kind of loot box, right? Or gift box where you open it up and you can even tier it, right? So if you're, purchasing maybe a base level entry and a certain amount of content is unlocked for you versus getting tier 2, tier 3, where you have access to more of the content, you can have different levels of loot boxes or swag boxes, right? Where you get different types of rewards. And this has been done for virtual attendees before the pandemic even started. And I think, the gaming industry was kind of ahead of that, and other industries are trying to catch on to say, okay, so to get my participants actually in the meeting, participating, not just registering, how can I maybe give them something relevant to the product that they really care about? Why are they here? Why are they deciding to register? They want to engage and they want something out of it.
So
but it shouldn't, if you have an issue of budget, David, it's not the first thing that you need to invest on. You know what I mean? So Technology is key. Technology is key. Content is important. Good speaker, all that. So the swag, if you have the budget, it's definitely something that you need to do. But if you really have an issue of budget, don't struggle and say, oh my goodness, I need to have my swag box. You can do something else.
The last question, I'm going to do a quick round robin. What engagement ideas that are cost effective for virtual events do you swear by? Like what is your go-to? Like Valerie just held up that crazy pencil thing.
You like them. No, definitely a good master of ceremony. I think for the engagement, for the audience, for your show, it's the glue of your event, and it's very important. It can be.
Say that again.
A master of ceremony, an EMC.
Did I do it okay today?
David, come on. You are one of the best. And you know it. You know it. So definitely this is important. It can be internal or external. If you have somebody in the company who has the energy, somebody like David and everything, definitely you have people who can do it. We have convention where we find and we identify people internally. So EMC, definitely, I think a good platform, because, you need to start before the event. An event is just not right now. You need to have a good platform, pre-event, during the event, and post-event with all that. And then after, you have a lot of different things. But all this engagement tool about the team building activity, the trivia, all this need to be tied with a story that you want to give to your event. What is your red line? What is a story? Where do you want to bring people here? So there is not the perfect tool right now. It needs to be adjusted to the story that you want to tell for your event. What do you want to leave people with?
Fantastic. Melissa, and then we're going to go to Rebecca and Joe, and we're going to wrap it up, and we're going to ask everyone to stay on because Rebecca is going to do an incredible tour of KUDO, which will quadruple your audiences because of all the great people that are going to be able to participate. Melissa, what is your sort of go-to engagement tool?
Yeah, I kind of agree with everything Valerie said. I feel like, great entertainment, the key is just engaging people with a lot of energy, because I think if you see that, that's, you mirror that. So really MC and DJ are key, and then look at what features the platform has, and then work out how that best makes sense to incorporate those into the meeting.
Joe.
Yeah, so I think adding music is huge. It does it adds a big difference. We have a lot of our clients that pipe in music and graphics as well to go along with that, just to get people pumped up and excited. Someone asked related to this, how do you balance the two, right, between in-person and virtual, and how do you make it all one without it being two different events? I would say really what you want to do is continually engage both types of audience. So when you're engaging the in-person audience and you're a speaker, you're the MC, you're constantly giving shout outs, not constantly, but frequently giving shout outs to your virtual audience to say, hey, we have X amount of people connecting with us virtually, and make sure you're bringing them into the fold constantly when you're speaking to everyone, to really get everyone feeling like they're in one room together, even though we're all over the world.
And Rebecca, you want to wrap up this part and we'll move on to the next?
Sure. So, yep, I'm going to echo what some of the others said about an MC. The only thing that I would add to that is that in this virtual world, it's really important that your on camera or your on screen talent has that energy, but you also have somebody who is actively moderating the chat function. So it's very difficult to both be on screen and moderate all that, but somebody needs to be funneling that information to the on screen talent. So that's one thing. And then the other thing that I just want to point out, because we talked previously about that idea of contact versus content, right? And people do want different things. I think when you see this big attrition rate of registrants versus people who are showing up, some of that may simply be the fact that people are more interested in the content, and they understand that in this on-demand world, most likely the event is going to be recorded. So they believe that that's going to happen. So you need to make that happen. And then you need to follow up with the people who were no-shows to, here, you can still access the content, because that becomes an evergreen asset to you. And then they missed out on the contact, but that's where you can follow up with them afterwards with kind of email drip campaigns or a way to keep the relationship and the contact going.
Great. I love marketing people love talking about drip campaigns. Thank you for joining us today for Going Global, catering to audiences around the world. We certainly have had participants from around the world. And make sure you stick around for a live KUDO demo that's going to be happening now. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Rebecca, and we hope you have a wonderful rest of the day or evening or morning, wherever you are. And especially Melissa, get back to sleep. And thank you very much. So take it over, Rebecca.
Excellent. Well, thanks so much. And as I just spoke about, I am going to have Joe, I want to get some questions from the audience. So I'm going to have Joe be the moderator of the chat box. And I'm going to walk everyone through. Awesome. I'm going to walk everyone through a demo here, but please feel free, if you have specific questions, drop them in here. And I wanted to start by, I know someone had a question early on that I did see come up in the chat saying that they were interested, this is an interesting platform. They were wondering what type of integrations are available. And as I mentioned early on, so yes, KUDO, we have our core platform that you're looking at right now, and that is a web-based platform. It exists. You can access it through any web portal. We have an iOS app and an Android app, so you can use it tablets, phones, and desktop devices. We also do have integrations with third-party video conferencing and event marketing platforms. So groups like Hopin, we're working on a deep integration with Microsoft Teams. In the future, we will have a deep integration with Zoom and a number of other event platforms that are out there. So if you run your events and you have your clients have their preferences, which has happened over the last year. That's perfectly fine. But as you move forward to bring in the multilingual aspect, that is really what KUDO is purpose built around. So that being said, I am going to share my screen and walk you through the platform here. Okay, everybody, Joe, you can see my screen? Just give me a thumbs up. Yep. Okay, excellent. So what you're seeing here is the KUDO platform. I mentioned at the beginning of the conversation, the most important thing that you're going to see on our platform here is the language selector. So today, we support over 100 spoken and sign languages at KUDO. So we have relationships, as I mentioned, with 10,000 interpreters that are professionally vetted, and they are what's called simultaneous interpreters. So what you may have seen on, I don't know if you watch CNN or global conferences, sometimes there are what's called consecutive interpreters. That means maybe I speak for 5 minutes. Consecutively, after I'm done with that 5 minutes, the interpreter will speak for 5 minutes. What we work with are simultaneous interpretations. So our interpreters are super well trained. They are amazing professionals where they are both listening to my voice and actively interpreting at the same time, speaking in their own language. So when you click through to any one of these language selectors, a different language will come up. So I'm going to bring on the American Sign Language interpreter here. And actually, I'm going to point out the fact that our interpreters are not on. Oh, they are. Awesome. Hi, Jerry. Excellent. So we do still have interpreters here. They were going to drop off for the end of this. But with American Sign Language, our sign language interpreters, you will see this video window here. Otherwise, what happens with the spoken word interpretation is you're simply going to hear a different language in your ear set, but you will see the main speaker. So the interpreter is purely audio. You are going to see the body language and the presenter in their native language. The other things that you're going to see, so this is, again, purpose-built for multilingual meetings, but the meeting portion is large soon. So what you're going to see here are many features that you'll see on other video conferencing platforms. So right here in the upper right-hand corner, we see the sharing. This is how I'm sharing my screen. The messages, so everybody has already incorporated their messaging. Samantha asks, is the Hopin integration currently live? So we actually, we were the multilingual interpretation provider for their recent hybrid event, Illuminate. We are fast tracking a deep integration, but we do have things available today. We'll be going live in their app store in the coming weeks. But yes, we can support interpretation on Hopin right now. The other things to think about, so polls, I think everyone was able to see the polls. This is something that is interesting. We work with big governmental clients like the UN and the Council of Europe. Their polls, they are replicating their in-person world now in a virtual environment. So in addition to the polling here, you can set up that poll to only work for a specific number of time. There's a timer that you can make sure people need to submit their answers in that time. Documents. So if you need to share any documents, you are hosting a sales training and you want them to be able to access your training or a sell sheet, something like that, you could house right there in the document section. The way that we have two ways that a meeting can be set up on KUDO. You can either have it open mic, and that's what you see a lot of Zoom meetings doing, right? Where everyone who joins the meeting is going to be brought on screen and they could speak whenever they want to. Or you could have it set up as a request to speak. That's what we have today. So you see this button here where it has done speaking. So if I clicked that done speaking, what would happen is I would leave the screen and my mic and my camera would be deactivated. I could still listen and participate as a listener or viewer, but I am not actively participating. So this is a nice way to bring people on stage so they can participate, but not have them on stage all the time. It also is a great way to moderate. So what happens if request to speak? This request list will pop up, and your moderator can accept or reject people to bring them onto screen. So great way to control a meeting that you are going to have with a number of people and just have the people who are actively speaking be on the screen at a specific time. The other things, oh yeah, go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, Rebecca, I just wanted to jump in here because it's a couple questions I just want to address while they keep coming in. So first, about integration with the Encore Chime platform. Without saying too much, and this is also related to captioning too, we are developing new technology all the time. We do plan on having a widget that can plug into basically all these types of platforms with an iframe. So we are working on that. So any specific platform would be able to work with KUDO as far as the event app platforms. So stay tuned for that. More info coming that way this year. Same with captioning. That's something that KUDO is actively working on. So please stay tuned for that as well as we continue to roll out updates for the platform.
Excellent. The other things that I just wanted to call, so we have different abilities to shift things. So what you have here, so if I was doing a screen share presentation, I can toggle here in between presentation. You are seeing this infinity loop because I'm presenting my own screen, and then live video, which is actually sharing, the people who are speaking on screen. So that there's a nice toggle switch there. We also have the ability to change the layout here. So right now I have kind of the speaker view where it would minimize, because I'm the speaker, it's myself, it would minimize myself, make Joe's window larger. I can toggle back to both of us being here. And then there's a nice full screen button here that would pull things full screen. You also have the ability to pin specific speakers. Again, right now there's only 2 of us, so you're not going to see a big thing, but if there were a number of people on screen, you could pin one of those windows. The other features that we have here, so this audio on and off button, that just toggles the inbound audio, so what I'm listening to. So if Joe were speaking right now and I clicked on this audio, that would mute the incoming audio. This is my audio meter. Audio is very important when it comes to interpretation, being able to hear what people are saying. We have, obviously our standard mute and turn off your camera button, and then a settings. This settings, so I can have my interface language. So if we are built for global meetings, for multilingual meetings. So we want people to be able to participate in a way that they are comfortable. So in addition to having the interpretation provided, we also can, I'm an English speaker, I'm going to keep mine on English, but had I changed it to a different language, all of the platform calls to action would change to that language as well and be supported. So you can participate natively in your own language. And then finally, we have our media settings, so you can change your camera, speaker, and microphone. That's high level where we have, and then you are seeing the front end interface of KUDO, or the meeting interface of KUDO. We have a whole separate interface that our interpreters are seeing on the back end, as well as the scheduling interface. So I mentioned before, through KUDO Marketplace, that is our on-demand booking platform for interpreters. So you can easily schedule a meeting. Once a meeting is scheduled, you can add interpreters to that meeting. So nice and easy, book interpreters button. You can, in that book interpreters platform, you can say that you are looking for an interpreter with a specialization in medical terminology, in legal terminology, in business speak, so that you can at KUDO, we can make sure to assign that to an interpreter who already has deep knowledge in your upcoming meeting or event. Any questions that I can field from the audience?
Try my best to answer as they're coming in, but let's hope there's some more. We're happy and ready to answer.
Excellent. Well, I'll stay on for another minute or so. And then also, we are happy to support and follow up with calls afterwards. There are plenty of team members here who have deep expertise in events. So I'm sure if you have an upcoming global event, someone from our team is happy to help out. Any other questions you see coming in, Joe?
None yet, other than France saying, very nice presentation. So thank you for that.
Oh, good. Excellent. Well, then, I think I'm going to give everyone a bit of time back in their day. Thank you so much for joining us for our Going Global webinar. Look forward to hearing from you all about how your global meetings are going this coming year. Thanks so much for your time. And thanks to you, Joe.
Thank you, Rebecca. And thank you, everyone.
All right. Have a good one.